Hello, everyone. I'm back. Did you miss me? Because I missed you. Y'all, I'm so excited to be back here another week. I know we took a little break. We took a little week break from our regular scheduled programming, but I want to welcome you back to another episode of Eat, Cry, Yap. I'm your host, Kenalia, and I'm so stoked to be back here another week yapping with y'all because we have a lot to talk about today, okay? The world events are world eventing. And in spite of that, it's important here and there to sometimes take a cute little mental health break. You know what I mean? Because in the midst of all of the swirliness, as I've talked about in previous episodes, it's so important, y'all. I feel like now more than ever to prioritize your peace, prioritize your happiness. And if that means taking a detox from all things, if that means taking a trip down to the beach and just sitting on the sand, baby, you do that. Because the world is getting crazier as we know it. And if the only thing we can do is try to keep our peace to save us from flashing on a mofo, then that's what we need to do. And that's exactly what I did. Because not only, was I staying attuned to what was going on in the world, but I was also having things going on in my life. Like, I applied for and was going through the interview process for a job that I really wanted, y'all. Like, I've told you a little bit about how I'm a corporate girly, and I was definitely trying to take the next step in my career via a career pivot and go into another area of the corporate arena. And I was going through this full-blown interview process, y'all. I made it all the way through the end. And literally the week that I was supposed to put out another episode, I got the bad news that I did not get the role. However, the reasonings for that wasn't anything within my control. And a large reason that I did not get the role was due to racism. I've obviously experienced racism being a Black woman in America, right? But I have definitely been experiencing it more in different areas of my life at this stage of my life. And it's just something that I was not prepared for at that time. And I really needed to take some time to just get it together because I have Black parents. And so they have obviously had to have a lot of conversations with me growing up about things that I will experience in the world. And when racism shows up time and time again, it is difficult. And it's difficult to have the energy to want to keep showing up. It's difficult to have the energy to not go off on motherfuckers when they try to come at you crazy. So I needed to get my peace and I needed to regroup and ground and just really pour into myself and allow others to pour into me. And that is how we were able to get out of that little bit of a funk and get back to the things that I've practiced throughout the year, which are, pouring into the things of my life outside of work to help me become a better holistic Kenalia. And so that my work chaos is not bleeding into my personal life and I'm just trapped in this swirl of bullshit, to say the least. And so I'm just so thankful for my community, for my family, because I have become the resilient Black woman that I am because of them. And I just would not be the same person that I am now without them. And so I'm just so grateful for them. And I'm so grateful for being able to separate work and life, as difficult as it can be, and find ways to find my happiness when such a big part of my life is not bringing me joy. And so that has been our focus for a bit. And then, per usual, the dating highs and lows, and also just really getting back into my reality TV bag. And that is actually going to be the focus of today's episode. I have to walk y'all through the top 5 shows that I have been watching because, baby, they have been giving, okay? But to start us off, before we even jump into the reality TV train, we have to spill a little tea. Okay? Because the tea that has been broiling in the stratosphere, in the world, is hyping hot. And what am I talking about? Okay, I'd be remiss if I did not talk about the egg crisis. So, what are we going to do without eggs? I find it funny that whenever we are going through a tough time in the world, for some reason there's always like a little whiff of like the end of the world vibes. Like not necessarily like a zombie apocalypse, but people do the most, i.e. go to the store and buy up all the damn toilet paper. And I just would not think in 2025 that our chickens would be running low on stock, that eggs would be so much more expensive. I can't say than they have ever been because I've only been alive for almost 28 years now. But in my experience, I have never seen eggs this expensive before. Now, look, I don't love eggs like that. So personally, it does not bother me. However, for those who have families and are constantly putting food on the table that consists of eggs, this is a crisis. Like, everybody cannot just switch over and all of a sudden become vegan and do vegan eggs. Everybody does not want to all of a sudden switch over and try to find egg whites instead. People need their eggs. People need their basic human necessities. And it's very disappointing that we have a president in office who doesn't do shit about things like this, but also is trying to induce tariffs, which are taxes, trying to put more expensive taxes on a lot of day-to-day goods, and are trying to tax the countries that are importing those goods to us more severely. So what does that mean for the people? We are impacted on that. We have to pay that difference. And we are now spending more money on our basic necessities. So when I say it feels like things are going downhill, how things are going downhill. When the eggs are getting affected, you know, shit ain't right. And so it's been so interesting hearing like different perspectives on the egg crisis and seeing different articles about, how chickens aren't producing as much as they used to be, which I don't know are necessarily true, right? Like, I'm not no chicken farmer. Who am I to say that chickens aren't spitting out what they usually do? But the fact that eggs are becoming more expensive does make me question what the hell is going on with the chickens. Like, are we also seeing that, like, are these eggs that are now being taxed heavier, are they also being messed with somehow? Like, not to put on my conspiracy theorist hat for a second, but, what are they shooting these chickens up with now to ensure that they're producing all of these extra eggs? Because I am seeing that there are concerns around chickens being able to produce as much as they have been. And we know that we have people in positions of power, not just on the president's side, but also in important areas like the CDC and the federal government, where we have a lot more people that don't have experience. So who the hell knows how our vegetation, how our animals, how so many things that we ingest within our bodies are being impacted because we don't have the right people in place to take care of those things. I don't know, man. I'm considering switching on my diet because if it's chickens now that are going up in price, like, what's next? I just feel like there's just something new going on every day now. And in light of that, moving on to something else that has been popping off on social media lately. Kanye West. Almost said bless his heart, but I just don't know that statement should apply to him because, over the years, I'm an old Kanye West fan. Like, old, we're talking college dropout. To me, that music was the best music he ever put out. Fight Your Mama. I don't care what you think. Let me stop. I care what you think. But I think College Dropout, that era of his music was the best music. And I will die on that hill. Over time, though, we have seen a rapid decline in not only, don't cancel me for this, but I feel like there has been a decline not only in his mental health, but also in his music quality. I do not feel like newer Kanye music is as good and has as much substance as his older music. However, Kanye has become even more vocal within the last, I don't know, like 3, 4 years on unsubstantial things. Yet, no, let me rephrase that. Kanye has become so much more vocal in the last 3 or 4 years on very harmful things. And some say, ever since Kanye lost his mom, he lost his mind because not long after his mom died, which for those of you that don't know, Kanye West's mother passed away after having surgery. I believe it was like liposuction, and she did not survive the full surgery, I believe. And so after that, not long after that, like Kanye had like this crazy like haircut, like it was like a bunch of circles on his head or something like that. And the VMAs happened when Taylor Swift won the award for something. I want to say it was like Video of the Year, I believe. And while she was up there giving her acceptance speech, Kanye West, if y'all remember, Kanye West walked up on that stage, grabbed the mic, and said, Taylor, I'm gonna let you finish, but Beyonce had the best video of all time or some shit like that. And the internet, the news media outlets, the world went nuts. After that, he was doing a lot of like quote unquote erratic things according to people who were like in his close circle. And we're seeing different, very odd behaviors he's displaying just in the media. Then we're seeing, his tweets. A lot of random shit, a lot of anti-Semitic statements, a lot of talking shit on other rappers, and a lot of like self-proclamation about he's the greatest thing to touch Earth. And to see that in 2025, the same thing is happening after, between 2024 and 2025, he's parading around with his wife naked the majority of the time and showing up to public places where there are children around naked, and most recently showing up to the Grammys to then parade his wife around in a fur coat. She takes the fur coat off and is completely naked under that. The backlash that came from that outfit, Kanye released literally within the last, I believe it was like last week or something like that, a span of just erratic, confusing, and harmful tweets. And I'm not gonna lie, the first thing I thought when I saw, I believe it was the Shade Room, who I saw like post like his first few tweets where he's just talking about how iconic his wife is in her naked outfit, he called it. Mind you, this girl wore a sheer, I wouldn't even call it a cloth because that thing was not even thick enough to be a thought. A thought. That thing was not even thick enough to be a cloth. It was like a sheer net. That's the best way to describe it, because there wasn't, you probably would be barely able to like pinch that thing. It was so thin and there was nothing under it. So for him to just go off on how iconic she is and to try to desexualize her from something that he knew would overly sexualize her, my first thought that came to mind when I saw those first few tweets were, nurse, he's out again. Because Kanye should not have phone privileges at this point. Have we not learned from the first time he even said an anti-Semitic statement and went on that bullshit apology tour over time to like apologize but not apologize, and then he's doing it again? Like, have we not learned our lesson? Kanye West has not been declared mentally insane. He has not been declared to have a mental health issue. So, with that in mind, he also has not been put under a conservatorship. He definitely functions, from what we're seeing, goes where he needs to go, lives his active lives, pays his bills. And so, with that in mind, why is it so hard for people to try and actually hold Kanye accountable for his harmful behavior? And what this has made me think is, has there been no recourse or actions taken against Kanye? One, because obviously he has free will, he has money, he has power. But two, is it also because a lot of people, because he has millions of fans, do a lot of people hold the same views as him? And is that why we don't see people calling him out when he's doing this shit anymore? Or we don't see any news about him being psychologically evaluated in this day and time? Because I don't know if y'all remember, but like back then when his sporadic behavior was happening initially, you know, he made claims about like people trying to control him, and like his trainer might have been hired to try to like control him through like his workouts and like prescribe medicine to him. And people were like, oh, it's the Kardashians, like they won't let this man live, without even holding space for the fact that like, could there be something mentally wrong with this man? The fact that just looking at his behavior, not using that as a scapegoat in terms of, you know, that's a reason why it's okay for him to do this. But you can't tell me that looking at this man's behavior, it's normal. Also, that it's non-harmful, that it could be seen as racism to those communities who are being harmed by his statements, right? But instead, it's almost like people just shoo off Kanye now. It's like, oh, he's just an annoying gnat. Like, oh, he's off his rocker again. Anyways, in today's news, so it's probed me to think these things. Like, do people just not care and actually agree with his views? Or is there no way to get this man the help that he needs, because he obviously doesn't want it and also has the power to evade that? Or 3, is there just too much shit going on to where there's no mental capacity to even, you know, process like what the hell he's doing? And so I just find it baffling and very unfortunate that, going back on the political note, we have fucking Elon Musk who is over Twitter. And so people like Kanye are able to go on that platform and spew out any hate, any negativity on that grand of scale, and there be no course of action. Now, some people are like, oh, it's censorship, and like try to bring up the fact that like Trump was like blocked from Twitter, and I think it was Facebook, for like censorship, when in reality, he incited the riots and spewed hate and was influencing people to do bad behavior. So what is the line, I ask? What is the line between censorship and consequences for actions? You know, because censorship is dangerous. We've seen this with other countries. However, in America, we have things called, in other countries, have influencers. And what we've seen is that bad people influence other bad people to do terrible things. And so something has to be done. I feel like Kanye is a never-ending storm, and I just fear, you know, what is going to happen with him. What is going to happen when other people who can be as dangerous are empowered by the president to do terrible things? And so I think we need to see, I think his wife is called, I think her name is like Brianna or something like that. We need to get her in a documentary. We need to hear her story, because homegirl don't be looking okay. She be looking dead in the eyes and like shows no emotion to the media, which he probably trained to do because he don't like doing that with the media for his own reasons. But like, I think there are sinister things going on, and she's being censored for whatever reason. And I'm curious if one day she will ever come out and tell her story. I would watch that documentary for sure. Okay, I feel like we've chatted enough about very interesting world events, and I just want to hear y'all's thoughts. Like, let me know in the comments wherever you're watching this podcast. I'm so curious what your thoughts are on the Kanye West, as well as the tweets he's been releasing, as well as y'all's thoughts on the egg crisis. Let me know. Now, moving on to what else we are yapping about today. If you are a TV binger, or if you have been curious to getting into some new series this episode is for you because I am going to walk you through my 5 recommendations for TV shows right now. And I've chosen these shows because they have got me hooked on interest, storyline, and accessibility just within like the streaming services that I'm watching them on. And here's the thing. So when it comes to me and like watching shows, reality TV, it doesn't take me much to like want to watch a reality TV show. However, when it comes to like series, TV series, it takes a lot. But mainly, I need to be intrigued within the first 5 to 10 minutes to keep watching. And I'd like to say I'm very similar to the average TV watcher because of that. Because let's be honest, our attention spans are not where they used to be. And I think that has a lot to do with like the social media age that a lot of us have lived in for a long time now. And so the content that we consume almost has to be even more entertaining to keep us engaged because it's not as easy to retain viewers now as it was before because of just the social media and the day and age and so I only actually have, let me see. I only actually have one reality TV show on this, and it's not even a reality TV show. I want to say it's more like a competition show, but it's reality in terms of like there's like real people and it's like non-scripted. That's what makes it like reality TV. So anyways, let's get into this list because I'll explain that a bit more once I get to that one. So first on my list, my number 1 recommendation for y'all to check out is Paradise. Paradise can be found on Hulu, and this show stars Sterling K. Brown. Sterling K. Brown is a movie vet. He has been in so many good shows. So many good movies, excuse me. But he has also been in really great TV shows. Like, I feel like one of the best TV shows that he has been in is This Is Us. A lot of people love that show. I personally have never watched it, but I know that it is a well-loved, well-enjoyed show. It also stars James Marsden, who is a blue-eyed baddie. Man, he is one fine white man. Anyways, the show follows Sterling K. Brown. I'm just gonna give y'all a synopsis. I'm not gonna give y'all any spoilers. But this synopsis, I hope intrigues y'all enough to watch because, well, I'll tell y'all why I love it after I give y'all the synopsis. So it follows Sterling K. Brown. He is the head of essentially like Secret Service. He is responsible for protecting an active president turned retired president. And he walks in on a major situation that happens. And the show follows him trying to figure out what happened, as well as dives into stories within stories. And that is probably the best way to tell y'all about the show without giving too much away, because the first episode, you think it's just about Sterling being the head of Secret Service, but no, baby. It's like a Russian doll. You open one doll, there's another one within it, and you open one doll, and there's another one with it. And I really love how the show does a great job of telling the different stories, as well as letting you see different perspectives of different characters within the show. And even how, like, I just want to tell you all of it, but I can't. It's just so good because Sterling does such a great job at playing a Secret Service agent, number 1. Like, you couldn't tell me that man didn't work in the government prior to seeing this man act. But I really love a suspenseful thriller, and that's what this show is. Like, you're kind of on the edge of your seat while, like, still comfy, right? Like, it's not like a thriller movie, like, oh, bam, somebody's gonna kill you. But it's suspenseful in terms of you're not going to be able to predict what's about to happen. Why? Because there's a story within a story within a story. And so far, Hulu has been releasing the episodes like in small batches. Like, baby, you're not about to go on there and see the whole season. Not now, because the season is still active. They have not completed the full season yet. They might have wrapped filming now and probably just editing the rest, but so far, I believe there's about like 6 episodes currently on Hulu. And trust me, y'all, if you like TV shows that are suspenseful and talk a little bit about the government, give you a little insight into like a crooked government, as well as tell creative stories that follow more than just one character, I 10 out of 10 recommend this show. Like, this show is number one for me for all of those reasons, as well as the plots and the twists and turns that you don't expect. Like, that is some prime written for TV shows that we just do not see as much in this day and age. And so I cannot hype up Paradise enough. You can catch it on a Hulu. I'd say the episodes come out like the first 3 came out and then the first 2 came out and then they released like another one like 2 days later, another one a week later. So like now is a good time to start because you'll at least have 5 or 6 episodes that you can binge and you will be like, holy shit, by the end of those episodes. And so please let me know if you end up checking out Paradise or any of these shows I'm going to talk with y'all about, because I know I'm not the only one that likes shows like this. And so I'm so curious to hear y'all's opinions if you get the opportunity to start. Okay, next on my list, and I will say, like, for the rest of these shows, these are not in a particular order. Like, Paradise is number one because it's the best one out of these shows. But the rest of these are in no particular order in terms of how I favor them. The next one I'm going to talk about is The Traitors. The Traitors is the one, like, sort of reality TV one that I was, like, hinting at earlier. The Traitors is more so, though, along the lines of a competition show. And so this show follows reality TV stars from various reality shows. We're talking, there's some Real Housewives on there. There are contestants from The Challenge on there. There are people who are famous from, like, what is that one show? RuPaul's Drag Race. Like, these are all well-known reality TV stars. I want to say they're prominently all reality TV stars, except for, like, on this season, there's only, like, one person who wasn't from a previous reality TV show, and I believe it's Zac Efron's brother, Dylan Efron. Which, side note, I didn't even know that Zac Efron had a brother. And so at first, when I'm seeing this kid on the show, I'm like, who is this guy? He's kind of cute. And literally, like, they had his name, Dylan Efron, like, plastered on the screen at one point. And I was like, Like, it didn't even ring a bell until I finally looked him up on Instagram and saw who his brother is. It was so crazy. So anyways, this show brings together reality TV stars across a bunch of different shows, and they're brought to a house to play the game, The Traitors. And the objective of, like, the show and the game is to be able to suss out who the traitors are. And there are a number of challenges that contestants have to participate in every day. And the majority of the goals of those games are to gain safety. Like, they want to be able to gain immunity from elimination, because every so often there is an elimination round. And in the elimination round, that is where you have to put up the people who you believe are the traitors to be eliminated. And so what happens is they sit at a round table and everyone has to sit there and essentially burn everybody at the stake. They have to make their case for who they believe is a traitor and why. And so that is where you start to see the betrayal in the house. People go against their friends, their allies, because they're kind of forced to suss out everyone for possibly being suspicious. Because if the traitors are doing their job well, people are unable to tell who's a traitor. And so it's a guessing game, a whodunit game. And so this season, I feel, has been especially interesting because the contestants of the challenge play a very strategic game, obviously. But we also have reality TV stars from, like, The Housewives and Selling Sunset on here who are trying to play a strategic game as well. And people are making the wrong guesses, and drama is ensuing from people turning on their closest allies, or people turning on who you would never assume they are, and even seeing some drama between unlikely characters, to say the least. And so this season has actually been the most entertaining season in my opinion, because personally, like, I'm not usually like a competition show kind of person. Like, I mean, when I was a kid, I used to watch like American Idol, but I never watched like American Ninja Warrior or The Challenge, because for me, it was just like too much thinking, if I'm honest. Like, if I'm watching TV, I don't want to think too much. You know what I mean? And so watching the divide in terms of the style of the players is so interesting, but also watching the drama ensue from people turning on each other, as well as the shit people are saying to make people suspicious of the wrong people, is so good, because it's giving some manipulation, it's giving messy, it's giving scheming, it's also giving like these people want to win this money and they're doing whatever they need to do that. And so if you love a show with a little bit of mess, a little bit of a competition, and a little bit of mess, yeah, and a little bit of comedy and like betrayal in the mix, I definitely recommend The Traitors. You can watch that one on Peacock. And I also believe it comes on NBC, but don't hold me on that. But Peacock is the place where you can watch those episodes weekly, because it publishes directly to there when it comes to like a streaming platform. Next, I am going to talk to y'all about The Night Agents. Oh my goodness. So The Night Agent is a Netflix series. Rewind back to like prime COVID, when like Netflix series were first like popping up on the scene as like the most bingeable watches. The Night Agent is one of those that I feel like should have been around at that time, because it was that good of quality. It is that good of quality of a Netflix series. However, I'm glad that it's not, because we need a break. You know what I mean? Like, you can't have all the good shit out at one time. You know what I mean? Like, you need to break it up a little bit, give people a break to like be able to like finish up their show, then move on to the next. So I discovered The Night Agent when it came out, actually, which was back in late 2022, maybe early 2023, around that time. And I'm not gonna lie, when I first saw like the previews of it, I was like, I don't know about this one, man. Like, I don't know that this one is not gonna be like just a basic like government show, like FBI, goody two shoes agent, whatever. And so I watched the trailer for it and I was like, I don't know. But I decided to give it a chance, because personally, one of my like favorite kind of shows to watch is a show that has some sort of like government agent situation with like crazy cases that they deal with, or like secret government organization vibes. Like, I kind of love that shit versus the standard like cops, and you know what I mean? And so this one is just that. It follows a guy who works for the Night Agents. And the Night Agent agency, I want to say it's an agency. It is a secret government organization that operates under the grid. And so this guy originally was brought in just to answer phones. Like, there is a night agent line that all of the agents spread out all over the world call when like shit goes south. Like, they about to die, or like they need help right now. So this guy was just hired in to answer the phone. Like, that's what he was told. All you gotta do is pick up the phone and talk to them. But one night, he picks up the phone and his life changes. The Night Agent is now 2 seasons in, and I have to say, season 2 is better than season 1. That's when you know, like, okay, there's room for this show to have been written better if the second season is better than the first, because typically it's like, you know, with the series or like with the trilogy, even like in movies, the first movie is always the best one. The first season is always the best one. But I feel like The Night Agent is one of those shows that increasingly got better episode by episode in season 1. And the same thing happened, but from the jump, with season 2. And so I highly recommend this show, because the chaos that he gets involved in and the truths that he uncovers while working as a night agent is just up there with those crime mystery action shows. Like, it is a movie but broken out into seasons. Like, it's one of those kind of deals, and I really love shows that like feel like a movie in terms of the action, in terms of the quality, in terms of the acting, all of that. And if you love action shows that also deal with crime and mystery and just jam-packed action in every episode, this is one of those shows for you. You can find The Night Agent on Netflix. Both seasons are out now. It has not been renewed for a season 3 yet, but I believe it will be renewed for a new season because it is that good. Like in season 2, I won't give any spoilers away, but I'll just say that they brought in new characters, still have a lot of the same old characters, but brought in new characters with new storylines that is very similar to Paradise in terms of stories within stories that somehow intertwine at some point and connect. And boy, did those stories intertwine on this show. So again, if you love shows like that, action shows, government secret agencies, giving you a different lens on things like that, I highly recommend The Night Agent. Now, lastly, I actually have a documentary to recommend to y'all. I know, not really on the lines of a TV show, but a lot of docs aren't like movies these days. Like a lot of times they are made into series, and that is exactly what this one is. Now, I will say prior to watching this doc, I had maybe heard of this story maybe like one time. Like, I believe it was like either a coworker or one of my friends was like talking to me about this woman named Amanda and how she ended up scamming a whole community of people into thinking that she had cancer. And so Hulu released a documentary called Scamanda that is illustrated by a podcaster actually who like investigated the story. Like she wasn't like the investigator on the case, but like through her podcast talked through the story of Amanda, who she was a person, how she came to do this, the players involved, and like sniffing out the scam and the scenarios kind of surrounding that. Like she really evaluated that through her podcast. And so the documentary has interviews from some of the closest people to Amanda, the podcaster herself, the police who were on the investigation. And I was surprised at how tuned in I was to this documentary. Because again, I had like lightly heard this story through like a coworker or a friend a while ago, but like never knew the whole story. And I was randomly on Hulu actually this weekend. And I was looking for like something new to watch. And like one of the other areas of like TV or movie that I love to watch are documentaries, quote unquote docu-series. I believe like that's the proper term for them now. And so I saw this one, I saw commercials for it on Hulu, and I was like, ooh, okay, this looks kind of interesting. And they only have 2 episodes up right now. And when I tell y'all I was ready for the 3rd episode, I just really love when docu-series, documentaries, you name it, do such a good job at narrating the story from the perspective of who the person was, period. Not the person's childhood, not, their hardships they faced. And I say that because I feel like a lot of times in docuseries, when people spend a lot of time talking about the upbringing, specifically of the accused, of the person who did whatever bad thing that the documentary is about, I feel like it then kind of unintentionally, but sometimes intentionally, in my perspective, kind of motivates the viewers to have sympathy for that person and almost motivate the viewers to like make excuses for the person because they know that person's background and how hard their life was and they were bullied, etc. Which shields the accused from being held accountable for the harmful behavior. And so going back to my thought, I appreciate when docuseries talk about the person's background lightly, like an overall, and like who they were as a person, specifically during the time of what happened, to give you a full picture of like what was going on for that person, like in their life at that time and like their mental space, whatever, as well as the people close to them, like in the direct household, as well as who their connections were. Because in this story, I won't give any spoilers, but in this story, it's about Amanda, who was someone who was well-liked in her community and a part of a mega church. And she had the kind of personality that like kind of rose her up the rankings in that church and kind of brought a lot of people into her life who gravitated towards her because of her charisma, her personality, whatever. It talks you through like who she was. It talks to you about her like husband and kind of sets up the stage for how she was able to commit a large financial and emotional scam, coercing people to believe that she had cancer. Now, I have not completed the docuseries, so I don't know yet whether she actually had cancer or not, or how they were able to do all of that. I only know 2 episodes worth of content, and so I'm so curious to hear more about what was discovered in investigations and what came out and who else was impacted by this. And I think docuseries like this, where we have someone who was able to use their relationships and their influence on people to get what they wanted, is so interesting in terms of like a human, like psychological level, which like I think of often, and how easy it is for some, or in certain situations, how easy it is for people to do horrible things to the closest people to them to get things like money or sympathy. How easy, and how also like how unknowingly, maybe in a sense, but also like how intentional people are about it. Like it just blows my mind, like the thought process and the personality of people who do things like this. And I think that's why I really like documentaries, because they really break those things down for you. And so if you are into documentaries, I highly recommend Scamanda if you have not heard of that story or like heard about that financial scheme, because it's pretty good, I will say. Because the people, I think it's best because the people who are involved in the docuseries were some of the closest people to her, as well as the victims, the people who fell victim to giving her loads of money, which is wild to think about, versus like picking some random people off the street, you know, asking them questions just to drive some craziness and like be able to say that like you broke the code on something. Like seems like a very truthful take on a very real situation that happened years ago that actually became national news. And so if you end up checking out Scamanda, I'm very curious to hear your thoughts once you get a chance to watch it. But that's it for today, y'all. I hope y'all will, if you get some time, take a sec and like check out one of these shows, because we know the world is crazy and it's nice to be able to find outlets to just relax via TV that aren't as like harmful and are actually entertaining. And so I hope you guys will be able to check out one of these shows I recommended. But if you have recommendations for me, please check out my Instagram page at ECY_podcast and let me know what shows you're watching, what shows you would love for me to talk about on this podcast, because I love hearing and having conversations around our theories around a show or the storylines of a show. I'm definitely going to do a movie podcast soon with some special guests. I hope y'all loved my recommendations. I'm curious to hear y'all's thoughts on that. But y'all know the deal. Go ahead and subscribe to this podcast on YouTube, on Spotify podcasts, and or on Apple Podcasts. Please rate this podcast. Let these publishers know that you love this content. And I hope y'all have a great rest of your week. And I will see you next Wednesday. Bye.